Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, and you're listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. This 30-minute podcast features a new author interviewed by me every single day, 365 days a year, for about 30 minutes. I am also the publisher for Zibby Books, which publishes 12 books a year in fiction and memoir. Our books are already out now. You can check it out on zibbybooks.com. And we have a magazine called Zibby Mag, where we have lots of wonderful essays and lifestyle features. That's at zibbymag.com. We have classes at zibbyclasses.com. And I recently opened a bookstore in LA called Zibby's Bookshop at 1113 Montana Avenue at 11th Street in Santa Monica. I hope that you are able to enjoy some of our other offerings. But this here podcast is the basis of all of it and started in 2018. And no matter what I do, this is basically my favorite thing. Enjoy. Andrew McCarthy is the author of Walking with Sam, A Father, a Son, and 500 Miles Across Spain. Andrew is a director, an award-winning travel writer, and an actor. He made his professional debut at 19 in Class and has appeared in dozens of films, including such iconic movies as Pretty in Pink, St. Elmo's Fire, Less Than Zero, and cult favorites Weekend at Bernie's and Mannequin. I have seen all of those movies about 57 times. His memoir chronicling this time, Brat, an 80s Story, became a New York Times bestseller in 2021. Andrew has directed nearly 100 hours of television, including The Blacklist, Grace and Frankie, New Amsterdam, Orange is the New Black, and many others. For a dozen years, Andrew served as an editor-at-large with National Geographic Traveler magazine. He has written for the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Los Angeles Times, the Atlantic, Time, Travel and Leisure, Town and Country, Men's Journal, Bon Appetit, and many others. He was named Travel Journalist of the Year by the Society of American Travel Writers, as well as serving as guest editor of the prestigious Best American Travel Writing Anthology. Andrew is the author of a travel memoir, The Longest Way Home, and a young adult novel, Just Fly Away, both New York Times bestsellers. He lives in New York. Welcome, Andrew. Thanks so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to discuss your latest book, Walking with Sam.
Yeah, it'll save everyone the trouble of reading it.
Yes.
They don't have time for it.
Yeah, skip the whole thing. Just listen to this. No. Run out and buy the book. That's the whole point. Well, I love the whole premise of this. I have 4 kids myself, and my oldest are twins, about to be 16. And the thought of like any of them eventually coming around and being like, yeah, sure, I'll go and walk with you for like a month, as opposed to like the walk to the deli. I thought that was so great. Like I thought when Sam was like, I thought you meant you wanted to go for a walk around the corner. So why don't you tell listeners a little about the book and how, how you, just like the whole setup of it and how you got to the walk and how you made it a book.
Sure. Yeah, it's called Walking with Sam. It's about a 500-mile walk I took with my the 19-year-old son across Spain on the old Camino de Santiago, which is an ancient pilgrimage route that was found in the 8th century. And it began as a Catholic sort of pilgrimage, and over the centuries, it still is a Catholic pilgrimage, but it's evolved to where people from all denominations and walks of life walk it. And it was something I did back in the early 90s. And it was a real life-changing experience for me. I walked it, and it had stayed with me. It had changed my life when I walked it the first time. And so I'd always kind of wanted to do it again. And then as my son was sort of cusping manhood and thinking about moving out of the house and all that stuff, I was afraid that my relationship with my son would end when he left home, the way mine did with my dad. I was 17 years old. I moved to New York City, and really that was the end of it. And I never had any kind of adult relationship with my dad. And it's been one of the biggest regrets of my life, I think. And I just didn't want that to happen. And I didn't know how for it not to happen, because I had no template for like, how do you have an adult relationship with an adult child? Because I didn't have one. And so I thought walking the Camino might solidify that in some way. I just had this sort of hunch, and I knew that it would give me the ultimate luxury that you have with an adult child, which is time, and because so much of the time my son's running through me, hey, Sammy, you want to go out for dinner? All right, I'll see you later.
Yeah.
That's that. And so to just walk beside him for 500 miles for a month across a country was really an amazing opportunity. I'm forever grateful that he said yes. He did kind of want to change his mind, I think. Like on day 2, he turned to me and said, "What's the point of this effing walk?" And he didn't say effing. And then, but then, the last day as we arrived in Santiago de Compostela, he said, "Dad, that's the only 10 out of 10 thing I've ever done in my life." And there's something about the walk and in walking in general and walking such a long way that has a real profound effect on us, especially in our culture and society now, where it's a mile a minute, we're defaulting to our phone every 3 seconds and all that kind of stuff, to just sort of let that all fall away for a while and sort of feel your own rhythm and feel the person next to you and really give each other space and receive each other is a big experience.
So true.
And I guess the book came out of why the books are. It's a ramble on more.
Keep going. No, it's great.
The Camino, you walk for 5. You walk to Santiago de Compostela, which is a city in the west of Spain, and it's near the coast. And that's where the official pilgrimage ends. But there's a walk for 3 days beyond it to a place called Finisterre, to the coast. And many pilgrims feel the need, the pull to keep walking all the way to the coast. And I did not. I was like, I'm going to hopefully make it to Santiago, and that's enough for me. My son said, "I'm going to go to Finisterre. Why don't you come with me, Dad?" And I said, "No, Santiago is enough for me, but you go." And the idea, the low-hanging fruit of the metaphor of our children, my son going beyond what I've done, was too much for me to sort of resist. And so I knew there was a book in it at that moment, because that's the idea, right? We raise these kids and hopefully they'll be the first one to go to college and become a lawyer, whatever it is, and to carry it further than we did. And when my son wanted to go do that and did go do that, I was thrilled for him. And I was thrilled to get to sit down for a couple of days alone. And then at the end, I would take a cab to the end to Finisterre to meet him and watch him come marching up the street. I get tears in my eyes now. And to just be able to receive him there, and for him to allow me to receive him, was a big, a wonderful moment.
Oh, it is. It's really beautiful, and I love how you're very open about how hard it was on your body at this age too, and like how you're always propping your feet up against the wall, and like, because I'm thinking to myself, how is he even doing this? Is I walked 6 miles around Charleston, and I had to sit down for like a week.
Oh my God! Well, at the end of every day, I collapse onto the bed, put my feet up to the wall, rub lotion all over my feet. I said, "I'm going to go out and check it out," and he's gone, and I'm like, "Oh my God." Well, that's the difference between 19 and middle age.
Oh my gosh. It's also so great to get the 10 out of 10 score when you so clearly outline like all the skepticism that he felt at the beginning, and all of the, not complaining, but like when he asked if the airport.
There was complaining. Where's the airport?
Where's the airport? That was so funny. Like I could totally see my kids saying that. Well, my kids don't even want to walk like to the garage, which is like 2 blocks away. But anyway. But then to remember, like they complain about everything. Like I think this is one of those parenting things. Like just because they complain doesn't mean it's not going to be great or worthwhile. Like having to push through all the complaining, I think is like the secret to getting any good experience with a child, because they're always going to push back. I don't know why.
All my kids always say, "No, I don't want to do that." Like, okay, anyway, get your shoes on, let's go.
Yeah.
Then they're like having the greatest time ever, and you're like, "Can we go home? I'm exhausted." But, it's funny. That's it. Yeah, I'm glad to hear your kids are like that. Mine are too. No is the first answer to everything, and it's just like. And, one of the nice things about the Camino is you start to see your own patterns of thinking, your own emotional cycles, and theirs too.
Mm-hmm.
To just sort of not react to them.
Yes.
It's the key to, parenting, isn't it? Just don't react. Oh my God. Just because they push those buttons and, they poke the bear and all those sayings and whatever, and to just not react.
Yeah. Especially when, like, you wrote each morning about how you had all these different strategies for like getting Sam out the door, and like, would you just put the time later? Would you how can you just get him going?
I mean, we were walking in August, which in northern Spain is blisteringly hot. So you want to be off the road by mid-afternoon. You don't want to still be walking at 2, 3 in the afternoon when it's 110 degrees in the sun with no shade. But yeah, my son being 19 wants to sleep till noon. And I'm like, dude, this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I also didn't want to go. There were days when it's like, I'm not waiting, I'm leaving. I didn't want to walk without him. The whole point was to walk together. So if you're as a parent, you're left with that, I don't want to teach him a lesson. I'm not going to let him rule my life. And yet I'll miss him if he's not here. And all that. You can't, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't,
It's so true. Well, I love how it all just like played out. Like it played out in life because you took everything else away. Like you left all of the real meat of the relationship, right? When you take out all the distractions and just put the open road, right? And you have to work it all out.
That's true. You take away all the distractions, but you're still you. And the relationship is still the relationship. But you can. There's space for it to have a little bit more affection too, in a certain way, because you have a common goal, and you do realize this is hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard. How are you doing? I'm tired. How are you doing? Yeah, I'm okay. There's some kind of solidarity in that. It's like when like you sit my son down to talk, you're not going to get anything out of him, but you get him moving. It's like people often can talk to their kids when they're in the cars because you're going somewhere, you've got a focus, you don't have to sit there and look at each other. And walking is the same kind of way, except you've got the physical happening, which is so great, that physical rhythm of walking. And walking does something to our brains that really relaxes them ultimately, And and to be doing it, we're both doing the same thing is, kind of great. Because how many times in our life are we doing the same thing with our kids? We either and I had the notion at the beginning of like, I have to take care of him now, even though I didn't. I mean, he's more capable than I am to do, but that's still the historical relationship. I've got to take care of him. And to realize at a certain point, now he's kind of helping me now, because at the beginning, he's sort of uncertain where to go. And I'm like, let's do this. This is what we do. And then at a certain point, we just march along together. And at certain points, like one time I write in the book where I fell and tripped, and I was like, wow, that really was scary. And he helped me, and, and he's going beyond me. So it's great. All the cheap metaphors are all work,
And also when you were lost for a second and he was like, no, I've been following along on Snapchat the whole time. And you're like, what?
Yeah. At one point we're lost and he pulls out his phone. I'm like, don't look at your phone now, Sam. Come on, we have to, and I'm doing that. And he's like, it's this way, Dad. I'm like, what is that? Because that's my Snapchat, man. The road's right here. It's over there. What? But that taps into the whole thing of like, we have so much to learn from our kids. Right. It's true. We have so much to learn from them. And, we're so busy thinking we're right all the time or wanting to be right and hold on to being right, even when we know we might not be. And, let them know better sometimes. It's a great thing for us and for them.
How did your other kids feel about this big special trip between the two of you? And even the fact that it's now a book, like, are they like, could I please have something? Or are they the age that it doesn't even matter anymore?
Well, my daughter would, we'd FaceTime on the way. My daughter was 15, I guess, at the time. And she goes, it's your favorite child calling. Just to remind me. Like my daughter, I don't think would want to walk across Spain, but she said, how about Paris? And my 9-year-old, recently the book, when you write a book before it comes out, you sort of get a couple copies in the mail, and it came and I opened the box and my son was there, my 9-year-old, and he picked it up and read a page or two, and he looked at it and he then closed the book and he said, it would have been better if it was about me. If either one of them wanted to do it, of course I would go in an instant, but I can't imagine that my daughter would, and my son, we'll see. I may not be able to make the walk by the time he gets old enough.
Even when he finally says like, okay, yeah, I'll take you up on this. And like literally the next sentence is, and then I went the next gym and I ordered the tickets. Because I feel like anytime kids give you just a little doorway of opportunity, you're like, boom, I have to take advantage of this immediately.
Oh, yeah. When my son finally said, yeah, I'll go on that walk with you. And I literally walked to the other room and bought 2 tickets at that instant. And we were in Spain 2 days later. I just said to my wife, I said, I'm going to Spain with Sam. She's like, okay, when? 2 days. Okay. And because I knew he would change his mind if I didn't. And suddenly we were in Spain before he even knew it was happening to him, and I'm glad we did, because even not just our kids, but most people would talk themselves out of this trip very easily.
Yes.
I do think it's the kind of thing you just go. You just go. People ask me, well, what do I need to do? I go, you need to go. Or you need to get a pair of walking shoes and go. Everything else, you're not walking the Appalachian Trail where you're carrying your world on your back. You're in society, you're in culture. You can buy a t-shirt, you'll get food, you're fine. go. And the reason most people don't go is, frankly, fear. People are afraid. And so fear stops us so much. And I just, I didn't want that to be the case.
So obviously you used to be an actor, or not you used to be, but obviously you started your career as a well-known actor and then you found this whole other career as a travel writer and have really leaned into that and done so much great work, and also written, this is now your third memoir. Was writing something that when you were a kid, you were always well, this is what when did acting intersect with writing, intersect with travel? How did that all happen?
Well, on the Camino, my first Camino, when I had this moment in the Camino where it just really, how much fear had dominated my life was revealed to me, and that was a real white light experience for me. And that changed my place in the world. And so I kept traveling after that first Camino, and I kept traveling alone and going far from home. I found that further from home I went, the more at home in myself I felt,
Mm-hmm.
And so I just started writing down, not a journal in any way, because I thought it was very indulgent journaling about me. I just wrote about what I saw and where I went and who I talked to. And I did that for about a decade with just notebooks full of this stuff on these trips I would take. And then one day I decided I wanted to do something with that. And I approached an editor of a magazine and said, you ought to let me write for your magazine. And he said, well, you're an actor, dude. And I said, yeah, but I can tell a story. That's what I do for a living. And anyway, and I said, he thought that was a good answer. And I also said, if it doesn't work out, you don't have to pay me. And he thought that was a better answer. And so I did. I became very successful very quickly as travel writing for two reasons, really, because travel, I believe, is a really valuable thing in our lives. I don't think it's something that, I don't think it's about a bucket list or bragging rights or Instagram photos. I think it's about something that's profound and can change our place in the world, like it did for me. And so that's sort of underneath all the stories that I write, is this feeling that travel is value and it's meaningful and go. And the other thing I knew intuitively was just to tell a story, don't sell a destination, And so the two things combined helped me become very successful. And I loved it. I loved travel writing because I loved it the way I loved acting when I started. And so, if you love anything, it shows. And so the way my acting career started, same way my writing career, it's just this accidental thing. I had a passion for it, and it just sort of grew of its own accord. In the same way, then I evolved into television directing and directed for these shows and things. So it's just, I follow these kind of nuggets of passion somehow. I'm not a very good businessman. I mean, you don't go pretty downwardly mobile to go from being in the movie actor to a travel writer. That's not a career path that many accountants would advise. But for me, it's worked out.
Well, I mean, obviously this whole artistic piece, it doesn't always align perfectly with, accountants and whatever, but that's
True.
what all the glimmers are about. I mean, we have plenty of accountants in the world, right? I mean, it's okay. You don't have to do everything.
Yeah.
Are there pieces that are now sort of glimmering to you more at this point that maybe you haven't explored as much, like photography or what I mean? Is there anything else coming out now at this stage of life?
I recently acted on a show again, a first season on a show called The Resident and I hadn't acted really in 10, 15 years much. And it was such a pleasure to go back to. I have to say, at the end of the day, I think ultimately I discovered who I was at 15 when I acted for the first time in a high school play, and that changed my life. So to go back to that, it was sort of like breathing to me. It's like that joke that's like the two fish are swimming in the water and one says that they pass each other and one says, morning, ain't the water fine today? And the other says, what water? You're of it, and acting, when I started acting, and it was just like of me, I'm of acting, so it was interesting and a pleasure to go back to. So I may do more of that. But, and I'm also continuing to write some stuff. So I get kind of bored. So I like doing all sorts of different things. The beauty of writing too is also you're not waiting for anyone to give you a chance to do it.
True.
You could just sit down and go. And there's something about sitting alone in a room and trying to whip something up that appeals to my temperament.
Yeah.
And I'm also someone who likes very few votes. The fewer the votes in my life, the better. And so in writing, there's really only one vote.
No negotiation needed.
No.
You can never be late. You could just do it yourself. That's funny. Do you have a go-to writing methodology? Do you like to write at home or in cafes or by hand or computer? Do you have a way you like to write the most?
I do not write in cafes. I can't not do that. Nor do I like that. I feel too vulnerable It's too distracted. But that said, I can sort of write anywhere. I mean, I've written in, the locker room at my kids' gymnastic classes. I've written. So I just can't write in a cafe for some reason, but I can kind of write anywhere. I used to be, I write at the kitchen table and there's chaos going around me often. The world, things are falling and exploding and I'm just there, and I'm also thinking, when will everyone go out? Can they just please leave? And then if they leave, I'm like, oh my God, what do I do now? And I stumble around doing nothing until it's like, they're going to be home in 45 minutes. And then I sit down and start writing, and then I yell at them in my head, why are they coming back when I need time to write when I've wasted the whole day? So that's what we do with our loved ones, is blame them for our own failings, right? But I tend to do better in the morning because my brain, just by the end of the day, my brain's mush and I can't really.
I get it. And how about books you like to read? Are you a big travel reader? And who are some of your go-tos for that? I'm sorry for all the sirens here.
No, Paul Theroux's books changed my life. They really did. They offered me his books like The Old Patagonian Express and The Great Railway Bazaar and things like that made that I read The Old Patagonian Express. Someone gave me that, and it was, basically his notion of go alone, go far, get out of touch for a long time. I was like, wow, I never considered that kind of travel, and so I started doing that, and that was a real game changer for me. But I don't read a lot of travel writing anymore. I haven't, and I discovered during the pandemic, I discovered audiobooks in a way I never had. Listening to a lot of audiobooks, which I really enjoy. If you get a good reader, you have to have a good reader. And I've gotten into a lot of true life spy stuff. I've become the idea of the compartmentalization that people can do of their lives just fascinates me. These people are doing spies, doing all this stuff, and they have a wife and kids at home who know nothing about their life. I'm just like, how on earth are they doing that? It's just kind of fascinating. It doesn't work, of course, it always blows up. But I into these kind of true life spy stuff that I just find really interesting. It's a deep rabbit hole, and I'm in it.
I bet. Yeah, I feel like if there's one thing that most books that are great have in common, it has something to do with keeping secrets, right? Secrets of, obviously, the spy thing, which is completely obvious, but even like the secrets we keep from our kids.
But that's interesting. It's like that was one of the things in walking and deal with a bit in the book of that, like how much of myself am I showing my kid, and what am I burdening them with? That shouldn't go on them. And they're not my pal, my buddy. They're my son here. And yet, by withholding, am I really just withholding from them and because I don't want to go there in myself and expose myself and make myself vulnerable to them? So it's a fine line. It's difficult to know exactly what the right thing is there. Because if you want them to see you in a way, to move beyond the parent-child dynamic into two adults having this relationship, you've got to let them see you. And that's vulnerable making. And so that's a tricky one that we wrestle with, and I continue to wrestle with in that one. But it's interesting, the idea of secrets and revealing and sharing, because what's the difference between sort of, if you're not going to share with somebody, they're not going to feel safe to share with you.
Right.
But on the other hand, it's like, that's not their problem. You still might hit, so I don't know what the answer is ultimately with that. And, you just sort of stumble back and forth across that line, I think, in a certain way. And you kind of go, he didn't receive that. Okay. And, the way kids will receive something at one age that they wouldn't have received 2 years earlier. And so learning that and knowing that, and it's a imperfect science, that's for sure. I'm pretty imperfect at it.
Yeah, I will join you in the imperfect boat. I've sort of opted for more sharing than less recently, but I don't know. Who knows if I'm doing it right? And I guess there's really no way to know.
I have two in a very, and yeah, and it's not a big deal, because then they know because that's how they learn from us, right? Is by what we do. They don't listen to anything we say. Sure. God knows. But like they see me do it, they go, "Oh, it's a safe place to do it," and that's how you do that. And that's all I'm always saying to my kids, just encouraging them to just talk. Like my kids in the book, and there with Sam, he talked about his drug use. And like, I had my own problems with alcohol and drugs. I'm very liberal with talking about it with them. But I can't say you can't do that, Tim. You do not want to be doing those drugs. They're not going to listen. They're going to shut down and not come to you again. And, any teenager and or young adult, the vast majority are going to experiment with that stuff. And to pretend they're not, or to think they're not, or to shut that down, that conversation down, is a fool's errand, in my opinion. And so, and it's a slippery slope. Everyone has to navigate for themselves that. But they are experimenting with sex and with drugs and alcohol, and to ignore that and or turn a blind eye to that or to forbid that discussion, I don't know, they're going to have it somewhere else then. I'd rather have them kind of go and, and I'll tell my opinion. I endlessly tell my kids, the only thing that can destroy your life is drugs and alcohol. Destroyed mine, will destroy yours. Everybody's the same in that regard. But do what you got to do. But I'm just telling you.
I know. I love when you're like, okay, then my son is smoking, but I made him ask it in Spanish for cigarettes. Like that I wasn't going to ask for a cigarette.
Bum that cigarette for me from that guy. I'm like, no way. You go ask him. Here's how you say it. And now you go ask him.
Oh my gosh.
But it's better that than him sneaking around to go, I got to go make a call, and him running out and sneaking a cigarette, for God's sake. I mean, that's...
No, it's true. It's like you're like teach a man to fish or whatever. It's so funny.
Right? I mean, that's the thing.
How is your relationship now that after all this and the book, and do you think it all made it better?
Well, I don't know that it needed to be made better. I think it's made it richer. It's made me kind of calm down a little bit, I think, about feeling the precariousness of it, that he'll grow and be gone and never see him again. And I think it's helped him trust me a little more. And I think that's all what we've been talking about, by revealing and not trying to know better, but just kind of going, this is my experience, and sharing as opposed to telling, so I think it was great fun. And it was great, it was like, you can't take it away from us. We did that together. And, that's whenever we do that with, and that's one of the things that travel does so well. It's an easy and fun way to sort of like, remember that thing, travel returns us to innocence and a sense of wonder that we so often don't have in our day-to-day life. And when you can share moments of wonder with people, that sort of, we're wide open when we're experiencing wonder, and so there's room for love to get in there, so.
Amazing. Well, last question. So if you would take your daughter to Paris for her sort of book, where would you go with your youngest? What would that book be?
Well, I just took my youngest. We just got back 2 days ago. We were in Botswana. I was writing a travel story for a magazine, and I took him on safari with me to Botswana, into the deep bush of Botswana. And that was kind of a pretty intense experience. That it was fantastic and great, but it was a lot for, you really realize how much burden of responsibility you feel with our kids, and how much of it is real and how much of it is just self-imposed and self-congratulatory, in the sense of you feel this weight of responsibility. And when you're in a place where you really are responsible in a real way, all that sort of grandiosity of responsibility and accountability falls away, because the reality of a situation asserts itself, if you know what I mean. And so to just sort of be there with my little guy, and that was kind of fantastic. But where will our book be? I don't know. He's older. Probably won't be Botswana. But
amazing. Well, thanks so much. Thanks for chatting about the book and everything else. And congratulations. And can't wait to follow your future travels.
Oh, great. Thanks. I really enjoyed it.
Okay. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Also sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com and sign up for my virtual book club and meet lots of authors on Zoom every other week. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music.